The seizure hit at 6:47 a.m. on a Tuesday. I remember the exact time because I was staring at the microwave clock when the familiar aura started, that ringing in my ears like a distant alarm, warning me to prepare for the embarrassing spasms that would take over my body like it owned me. And it did own me. Then came the strange metallic taste, like I'd just downed a glass of liquid iron, followed by that muffled underwater sensation and the gripping fear of being trapped, aware but helpless. Just as I was losing control, I called out to my husband David, who was making his protein shake at the counter. "David, I need my medication. I'm about to." The words came out as gasps. The world tilted sideways. When I came to, I was sprawled on the cold tile floor, my cheek pressed against crumbs from last night's dinner. David stood above me, fully dressed for work, scrolling through his phone. When he finally looked up, his expression was vacant, annoyed. "Are you done with your episode?" he asked, not bothering to look away from his screen. "I have a meeting in 20 minutes. I tried to sit up, my head pounding. Post-seizure exhaustion had settled into my muscles like lead weights. "Did you call 911? Look, Anna, you're so attention-seeking. If you think this act works on me, you're joking. I'm not falling for it anymore." I stared at him, dazed. 4 years of marriage, 6 years together, all of it crumbling in front of me, but I couldn't accept it. Not yet. David wasn't just some boyfriend. We'd been married 4 years, together for 6. He'd proposed 6 months after my first seizure, promising he'd stand by me until we found a cure. He'd been the perfect, concerned partner anyone would pray for. I couldn't believe he now saw my epilepsy as a character flaw I refused to correct. "Where's my medication? I couldn't find it this morning before." "Maybe if you kept track of your things better," he said, finally looking at me with that expression I'd grown to hate, pity mixed with contempt. "I'm not your caretaker, Anna. You're a grown woman." I dismissed the irritation in his voice and crawled to the cabinet where I kept my pill organizer. Empty. Breathing hard, I dragged myself to the bedroom where I always kept a backup bottle. Also gone. I heard David's car pull away and began the exhausting crawl upstairs. By the time I reached the top, dizziness from the seizure had me seeing spots. My phone beeped with a random notification, but something else caught my attention. My recording app was still running. I'd started recording our conversations 3 months ago, after David hit me for the first time over something so trivial I can't even remember what it was. Since then, I'd noticed behaviors that I'd somehow missed in our years together. His gaslighting had become so subtle and persistent that I'd begun questioning my own sanity. That morning, though, the recording was accidental. I'd forgotten to turn it off. I played back the audio, my voice calling for help, the sound of my body hitting the floor, David's cold response. But what I heard next made my stomach drop. David's voice, clear as day, talking on his phone after he thought I'd passed out. "Yeah, Mom, she had another one of her fits. No, I didn't give her the medication. Dr. Brown said stress could be triggering them. Maybe if she learns there are consequences for her dramatics, she'll stop." I replayed it 3 times, hands shaking. David had deliberately withheld my seizure medication. For how long? How many times had I blamed myself for being forgetful? How many episodes could have been prevented? I called my neurologist's office immediately. "Mrs. Anna," Dr. Brown said when he called me back, his voice grave, "missing doses of anti-epileptic medication can cause breakthrough seizures, which can lead to serious injury or even death. Who told you to stop taking them?" The tears came then, unstoppable. I explained about David hiding my medication, about his claims that the doctor had approved it. The silence stretched so long I thought the call had dropped. "Mrs. Anna, I need you to come in immediately, and I think you should consider whether you're in a safe environment at home." Dr. Brown's words echoed as I searched the house systematically. I found my medication in David's toolbox in the garage, hidden behind a box of screws. 3 bottles, including the emergency supply I kept for travel. Pills were missing from each bottle. David had been controlling my doses for months, giving me just enough to prevent constant seizures. but not enough to prevent the breakthrough episodes that sent me to the emergency room. I photographed everything: the hidden medication, pill counts, dates on labels. Then I called my sister Emma, a nurse practitioner who tried warning me about David's behavior for years. "Anna, what he did could have killed you." Emma's voice was tight with controlled fury. "Medication tampering is a felony, but more than that, he's been systematically endangering your life while making you think you were the problem." Emma helped me understand what I was dealing with. David hadn't just been emotionally abusive, he'd graduated to medical abuse, using my condition as a weapon. The seizures I'd blamed on stress, poor sleep, or not taking care of myself had likely been caused by his deliberate sabotage. I began remembering how David always chose moments after my seizures to schedule dinner parties, work events, then made me feel guilty for being too sick to cook and host alongside him. "If I were you," Emma said after a long pause, her tone careful but meaningful, "I would document everything. He shouldn't get away with attempting to take your life." I started that afternoon. David burst through the front door at 6:30 p.m. like a man possessed, his usually pristine work shirt untucked, tie loosened, briefcase forgotten in the car. His face was flushed with excitement, eyes bright with something I hadn't seen in months. Anna, where are you?" he called out, practically bouncing on his feet. I emerged from the kitchen, still weak from the morning's seizure, and watched him pace the living room like a caged tiger. "You're not going to believe this," he said, running both hands through his hair. "The Meridian deal, it's happening. It's actually happening." He spun around to face me, grinning so wide it looked almost manic. $500 million, Anna, $500 million. He pulled out his phone, fingers flying across the screen. "Look at this. Look at these projections." He shoved the device toward me, showing spreadsheets and charts I couldn't focus on through my post-seizure fog. "Jim just called me into his office. The client loved our presentation so much they're fast-tracking the whole thing." David grabbed my shoulders, his grip tight enough to leave marks. "Do you understand what this means? The commission alone will set us up for life. We can buy that house in Tuscany you're always talking about. Hell, we can buy 3 houses." I stared at him, my head still pounding, trying to process this sudden shift from the man who'd stepped over my convulsing body 12 hours earlier. "There's just one thing," he continued, finally releasing me and starting to pace again. "The client wants to meet the team, all of us including spouses. There's a dinner next week, Wednesday night, black tie, very formal." He stopped packing and looked at me expectantly. "You'll need to get something nice to wear. This has to be perfect, Anna, perfect." His phone buzzed. He glanced down and his entire demeanor shifted, the manic excitement replaced by something guarded, almost furtive. He quickly flipped the phone face down on the coffee table. "Who was that?" I asked, my voice hoarse. "Nobody, just work stuff." He avoided my eyes, suddenly fascinated with straightening papers that were already neat. "Anyway, about the dinner." "David," I interrupted, testing him, waiting for him to acknowledge what had happened that morning. "I had a seizure today, a bad one." He barely glanced up. "Yeah, I know. You'll be fine for the dinner though, right? This is the biggest opportunity of my career, of our lives." His eyes had that glassy, distant look again, like he was seeing dollar signs instead of his wife. $500 million, Anna, can you imagine? His phone buzzed again. This time he was quicker, snatching it up and silencing it before I could see the screen. But not before I caught the name. Sophia. "I should go shower," he mumbled, edging toward the stairs. "Long day tomorrow, more meetings about the Meridian contract." I watched him disappear upstairs, that sick realization settling in my stomach. Even faced with the biggest deal of his career, even in his moment of pure joy, he couldn't manage a single word of concern about my condition. No apology for the morning. No questions about whether I was okay. I had truly been married to a stranger for 4 years. His excitement about money, about success, about everything that mattered to him, none of it included my well-being. The recording device in my pocket suddenly felt heavy with purpose. Over the next 2 weeks, I became a different person. While David saw a compliant wife preparing for his important dinner, I was actually building a case that would destroy him completely. I transformed into the wife David had always claimed he wanted. Every morning, I woke up before him to prepare his coffee exactly how he liked it: 2 sugars, a splash of cream, served in his favorite navy blue mug. I'd lay out his clothes for work, always making sure his shirts were perfectly pressed and his ties coordinated flawlessly. "You're in such a good mood lately," he commented one morning as I buttoned his shirt for him, my fingers lingering on his chest just a moment longer than necessary. "I've just been thinking about how lucky I am," I whispered, looking up at him with doe eyes. "About this opportunity you're giving us. I want to be the best wife I can be for you." He smiled that satisfied smile I'd learned to recognize, the one that meant he thought he was winning. I started cooking his favorite meals every single night. Grilled salmon with lemon butter on Monday, his mother's pot roast recipe on Tuesday, homemade pasta with that expensive truffle oil he loved on Wednesday. I'd light candles, play soft jazz, and serve him like he was royalty. "Anna, sweetheart, you don't have to go to all this trouble," he'd say, but his eyes told a different story. He was eating up every moment of my apparent devotion. When he came home from work, I'd greet him at the door with a kiss that lasted just a beat longer than usual, my arms wrapped around his neck, breathing his name like a prayer. I'd ask about his day with genuine interest, hanging on every word about office politics and client meetings. "Tell me more about the Peterson account," I'd say, curled up beside him on the couch, my head on his shoulder. "You're so brilliant at handling difficult clients." I did his laundry without being asked, organized his home office, even started ironing his underwear, something I'd never done in 4 years of marriage. I became the Instagram wife he'd always compared me to but never quite demanded I become. In bed, I was different too. More attentive, more eager to please. I'd trace patterns on his chest and whisper about our future together, about the life we'd build after this big deal came through. "I can't wait to travel with you," I'd murmur against his neck. Just the two of us, finally able to enjoy life without worrying about money. He'd respond, his hands in my hair. "You deserve the world, Anna, after everything you've been through with your condition." The irony was suffocating, but I played my part perfectly. I even started leaving little love notes in his briefcase, sweet messages about how proud I was of him, how grateful I was for his patience with my health issues. Each act of devotion was calculated. Every tender moment was performed. While I played the role of the adoring wife, I was systematically documenting every piece of evidence I needed to destroy him. David had no idea that the woman massaging his shoulders each night was the same woman photographing his hidden stash of my medication. The wife who kissed him goodbye so sweetly each morning was recording their conversations and screenshotting his text messages with Sophia. The more loving I became, the more comfortable he got. The more comfortable he got, the more careless he became with his secrets. It was almost too easy. I installed hidden cameras in our kitchen and living room, tiny devices Emma had helped me order online. I recorded every conversation, every dismissive comment, every time he moved my medication. The man who claimed to love me had no idea he was creating evidence of his own crimes. Note, in our state, I could legally record conversations in my own home without his consent, as long as I was present. Emma had checked this for me. My hands shook as I picked up David's phone from the marble countertop one evening. The screen was still lit. He'd forgotten to lock it again after his shower. Steam fogged the bathroom mirror behind me, and I could hear the water still running in the guest bathroom down the hall. I shouldn't look. I knew I shouldn't. But the notification was right there, glowing accusingly. Sophia read, "Can't stop thinking about last night." My finger moved before my conscience could stop me. The messages unfolded like a roadmap of betrayal. Sophia read, "Yesterday 11:47 p.m. Can't stop thinking about last night. You were incredible." David, yesterday 11:52 p.m. You too, beautiful. I've never felt anything like this. Sophia read, yesterday 11:54 p.m. When can I see you again? I hate that we have to sneak around. I scrolled up, my heart hammering against my ribs. 3 months. 3 months of messages stretching back to July. My legs felt weak. I sank onto the closed toilet seat. Still scrolling. Then I found the messages that made my stomach clench with ice-cold dread. Can't wait to start our new life in Costa Rica. Just need to get through this dinner party and collect the signing bonus. Then we're free. What about your wife? Anna, she'll be fine. Her condition makes her unemployable anyway. She'll probably end up in some care facility. Not my problem anymore. The chills spread through my entire body as I kept reading. David had been planning this for months. The medication tampering wasn't just abuse, it was part of his exit strategy. He wanted me sick, dependent, and isolated so no one would question his version of events when he disappeared. But the most chilling discovery was a life insurance policy he'd taken out on me 6 months ago. $2 million. Suddenly, his escalating negligence made horrifying sense. The phone slipped from my numb fingers, clattering against the tile floor. In the distance, I heard the shower shut off. David would be out any minute, would come looking for his phone, would smile at me with that same warm smile he'd given me every morning for 4 years. 4 years. I stared at my reflection in the black screen of his phone. A stranger stared back, hollow-eyed, pale, the woman whose husband called someone else baby, and planned to abandon me to a care facility while he started a new life in Costa Rica. Footsteps in the hallway, getting closer. I picked up the phone with trembling fingers and placed it exactly where I'd found it. My wedding ring caught the bathroom light, throwing tiny rainbows across the wall. "Hey, babe," David called out, his voice cheerful and unsuspecting. "Have you seen my phone?" I screenshot everything and sent it to a secure email account Emma had helped me set up. Then I did something that surprised even myself. I started planning the dinner party of David's dreams. "Anna, you've outdone yourself," David beamed as he surveyed the elegant dining room setup. "Everything looks perfect." And it was perfect. 20-place settings of our finest china, fresh flowers, candles creating just the right ambience. The menu I'd prepared was flawless: herb-crusted lamb, truffle risotto, and chocolate soufflé. I'd even accommodated every dietary restriction and allergy David had mentioned. What David didn't know was that I'd also prepared a different kind of feast. The guests began arriving at 7. David's entire management team, potential investors, even the company's CEO. These were powerful people who valued reputation and integrity above all else. Perfect. As they settled into their seats, praising the appetizers and the wine selection, I felt calmer than I had in months. For the first time in years, I wasn't worried about having a seizure. My medication was safely in my system. I'd retrieved my supply from David's toolbox and had been taking proper doses under Dr. Brown's supervision. I had also made a crucial phone call that afternoon. Dr. Brown had agreed to contact the police on my behalf, and they were scheduled to arrive at exactly 9:15 p.m., right when dessert would normally be served. "Ladies and gentlemen," David stood, raising his champagne glass, "tonight isn't just about celebrating this incredible deal. It's about celebrating the woman who made it possible, my wife Anna, who has worked tirelessly to make this evening perfect despite." He paused dramatically, despite her ongoing health challenges. Health challenges? The words hit me like a slap across the face. Not epilepsy, not a medical condition. Health challenges, as if I'd chosen to be sick. As if my seizures were a character flaw I refused to correct. The same man who'd been systematically poisoning me was now painting himself as a saint for tolerating my existence. Several guests nodded sympathetically. I heard murmurs of "so brave" and "what a devoted husband." If only they knew, I thought, my smile never wavering. If only they knew that the devoted husband had hidden my medication this very morning, counting on me being too disoriented to notice. I smiled sweetly and stood. "Thank you, darling. Actually, speaking of making this evening perfect, I have a special presentation prepared for everyone. It's a sweet little gift to you all and most importantly, to my husband." David's smile flickered slightly. "Honey, that's not necessary." I moved closer to him, placing my hand gently on his chest, looking up at him with all the adoration I could muster. "Oh, but darling, it absolutely is necessary. You see, everyone." I turned to address the room while keeping one hand on David. "I have the most incredible husband. He's been by my side through every single seizure, every hospital visit, every difficult moment of my condition." The guests smiled warmly. David relaxed slightly, his chest puffing with pride. "He takes such good care of me," I continued, my voice dripping with honey. "He even helps manage my medication, making sure I take exactly what I need when I need it. He's so attentive, so devoted, so thorough in his care." David's smile was back in full force now. He probably thought I was going to show a slideshow of our happy memories. I gave him a tender kiss on the cheek. And that's exactly why I want everyone to see just how devoted my husband really is. I moved to the wall where I'd discreetly set up a projector earlier, claiming it was for ambience lighting. Everyone loves a good love story, don't they? The room murmured agreement as I dimmed the lights and powered on the projector. David's face went pale, but he couldn't object without causing a scene, not after I'd just praised him so publicly. "This is a story about marriage," I began, my voice steady and clear. "About trust, devotion, and what happens when those sacred bonds are broken." The first image appeared on the wall, David's text messages with Sophia. The room fell silent as people began reading. I watched David's face transform in real time. Beads of sweat appeared on his forehead, despite the cool evening air. His lips pressed into a thin, bloodless line as he recognized his own words projected for everyone to see. "David has been planning a new life," I continued conversationally, as if discussing the weather. "With his colleague Sophia Martinez from the marketing department. They're moving to Costa Rica with the signing bonus from tonight's deal." Mr. Harrison's fork clattered onto his plate. His face went from confusion to fury in seconds. "Sophia Martinez?" His voice was dangerously quiet. "The same Sophia Martinez who's married to our head of security. The same employee handbook that explicitly forbids workplace relationships, especially with subordinates." David's hands were trembling now. He tugged at his collar, loosening his tie. "Mr. Harrison, I can explain." "Oh, there's so much more to explain," I interrupted sweetly, clicking to the next slide, photos of my medication hidden in David's toolbox. "You see, David has been slowly murdering me by withholding my epilepsy medication. He's been doing this for months, causing me to have dangerous seizures while convincing me I was forgetful and irresponsible." David's breathing became shallow, rapid. Sweat stains were forming under his arms, visible through his expensive shirt. "Anna, stop this right now. You're having an episode, you're not well." "Actually, I'm perfectly well now that I'm taking my proper medication," I said calmly. "Dr. Brown confirmed that everything David told me about my treatment was a lie." I clicked again. The audio began playing, David's voice after my seizure, talking to his mother about withholding my medication, calling my life-threatening condition dramatics. David's face had gone from red to pale green. He gripped the edge of the table so hard his knuckles turned white. The silence in the room was deafening. 20 powerful people sat frozen, their faces showing everything from horror to disgust. "But here's the truly fascinating part," I said, advancing to the life insurance policy documents. 6 months ago, David took out a $2 million life insurance policy on me. Now, normally, that might seem like responsible financial planning. But when you combine it with systematic medical abuse designed to worsen my condition, I let the implication hang in the air. "The policy has a double indemnity clause," I continued, reading from the document. "If I die from an accident, say, hitting my head during a seizure that could have been prevented with proper medication, David would receive $4 million. The same amount he and Sophia estimated they'd need to live comfortably in Costa Rica for the rest of their lives." Mrs. Patterson, the company's head of legal, was frantically typing on her phone. Mr. Harrison looked like he might vomit. David's composure finally cracked completely. "You vindictive bitch," he screamed, sweat pouring down his face. "You're ruining everything. This was supposed to be MY night." He lunged toward the projector, his movements erratic and desperate. But it was too late. Dr. Brown and 2 police officers entered the dining room, perfectly on schedule. "David Force," Officer Martinez said, "you're under arrest for domestic violence, medical abuse, attempted murder, and insurance fraud." As they led David away in handcuffs, he shouted back at me, "You vindictive witch, you've ruined everything." I looked at him calmly. "No, David, you ruined everything the moment you decided my life was expendable." The video of David's arrest went viral within 48 hours. Someone at the dinner party had recorded it on their phone, and suddenly Medical Abuse Exposed was trending across social media platforms. The local news picked it up first, then national outlets. "Medical Abuse Exposed at Corporate Dinner Party" flashed across every screen in the city. I was washing dishes when my phone rang for the 15th time that morning. David's mother, Margaret, again. I'd been ignoring her calls since the arrest, but this time I answered. "Anna, dear, you need to drop these ridiculous charges immediately," she said without preamble. "David made a mistake, yes, but this has gone too far. You're destroying a good man's life over a misunderstanding." "A misunderstanding?" I set down the plate I was holding. "Margaret, your son was trying to kill me." "Don't be so dramatic. David loves you. He's always loved you. He's just been under tremendous pressure at work and—" He hid my seizure medication and took out a life insurance policy on me. Men do foolish things when they're stressed, but family forgives, Anna. That's what marriage means. I hung up and immediately called Emma. "They're relentless," I told her, scrolling through 17 missed calls from various members of David's family. "His sister just texted me saying I'm vindictive and cruel for not visiting him in jail." "Block them all," Emma said firmly. "Every single number. What they're doing is called DARVO, deny, attack, reverse victim and offender. It's classic enabler behavior when someone in their family gets caught." 2 days later, David's lawyer called. "Mrs. Anna, my client would like to speak with you. He's prepared to make this right." "Make what right? The attempted murder?" "My client disputes that characterization. He'd like to discuss a settlement." I hung up. That evening, Emma came over with wine and takeout Chinese food. "How are you holding up?" "His family won't stop," I admitted. "They keep saying I'm overreacting, that I should stand by him. His cousin even said I was lucky to have a husband who tried to help manage my condition." Emma poured wine into 2 glasses. "Anna, look at me. You haven't had a single seizure since you started taking your medication properly. Not one. That's not a coincidence." She was right. For the first time in months, I felt truly healthy, clear-headed, strong. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "This is David. I'm using someone else's phone. Please come see me. I can explain everything. I love you. I've always loved you." I showed Emma. She rolled her eyes. "Don't even think about it." But part of me was curious. What could he possibly say now? The next day, against Emma's advice, I went to the county jail. David looked terrible. His usually perfect hair was disheveled, his skin pale and blotchy. He'd lost weight. When he saw me through the glass partition, tears filled his eyes. "Anna, thank God you came." His voice was muffled through the speaker. "Baby, I'm so sorry. I made mistakes, terrible mistakes, but I never wanted to hurt you. You systematically poisoned me for months." I was confused. Dr. Brown said stress could trigger seizures, and I thought maybe if you had fewer episodes, you'd be happier. That's not what Dr. Brown said, and you know it. David's composed mask slipped. Okay, I was angry sometimes. Your condition, it's expensive, Anna. The medication, the hospital visits, the days you couldn't work. So you decided to kill me for insurance money." "No, that policy was it was practical. I thought if something happened." "Nothing was going to happen," David. You were making it happen." He leaned forward, pressing his palms against the glass. "Anna, please, drop the charges. We can work this out. I'll get help, therapy, whatever you want. Just don't let them destroy me over this." I stared at this man I'd loved for 6 years. This man who'd held me during seizures he'd caused, who'd whispered comfort while planning my death. "You asked me to drop the charges," I said slowly. "Not to forgive you, not to heal, just to make your consequences go away." "Anna, you're not sorry you hurt me, David. You're sorry you got caught." I stood to leave. "Wait," he was shouting now, his composure completely gone. "You vindictive bitch, you planned this. You recorded me, you set me up. This whole dinner party was a trap." The guard moved toward him, but I held up my hand. I wanted to hear this. "I gave you everything," David screamed. "I married you despite your condition. I could have left when the seizures started getting worse, but I stayed. I took care of you." "You caused the seizures, David." "So what if I did?" His face was red, spittle flying as he raged. "You were becoming a burden. The medical bills, the constant drama, having to baby you all the time. I did what I had to do." There it was, the truth finally. "Thank you," I said calmly. "I needed to hear you say that." "Anna, wait, I didn't mean." But I was already walking away. The guard was escorting David back to his cell, his voice echoing down the hallway. "Anna, Anna, you can't do this to me." David's lawyer called 3 days later. "Mrs. Anna, after reviewing the additional evidence from yesterday's visit." "You recorded that?" "All jail visits are recorded, ma'am. My client would like to change his plea to guilty on all charges." David pled guilty to domestic violence, medical tampering, attempted murder, and insurance fraud. The judge sentenced him to 12 years, longer than his lawyer had hoped, shorter than the prosecutor had wanted. "Your client showed a pattern of calculated abuse designed to endanger his wife's life for financial gain," Judge Martinez said during sentencing. "This court has rarely seen such a callous disregard for human life disguised as marital care." Sophia had already been fired and divorced. She'd fled to her parents in Arizona, claiming she never knew about David's plan, though her text messages suggested otherwise. Her husband, ironically the head of security at David's company, had been the one to dig up additional evidence of their workplace affair. As for David's family, they finally stopped calling after Emma sent them a cease and desist letter. Apparently, having their precious David's confession recorded and transcribed was enough to shut them up. 6 months later, Emma and I opened Truth and Evidence Consulting, a service helping domestic abuse survivors document their cases and escape safely. Our first client was a woman whose husband had been tampering with her diabetes medication. "How did you know what to look for?" she asked during our initial consultation. "Experience," I said simply, "and a very good sister." Emma squeezed my hand. We'd already helped 23 people build cases against their abusers. 12 successful prosecutions so far, with more cases pending. The best part? I haven't had a single seizure since I started taking my medication properly. My neurologist says my brainwave tests, called EEGs, are the best they've been in years. The scans that measure electrical activity in my brain show completely normal patterns now. Turns out, when you're not being systematically poisoned by someone who claims to love you, your health improves dramatically. David's mother sent one final letter from prison. David had asked her to write it. He wanted me to know he was truly sorry and hoped I could find it in my heart to forgive him someday. I threw it away without reading past the first paragraph. David thought he could manipulate me until I disappeared from his life, one way or another. Instead, he disappeared from mine, exactly as he deserved. Some people say my revenge went too far. I say it went exactly as far as it needed to. After all, the truth isn't revenge, it's just the truth, served at the perfect temperature. Thank you for coming along on this journey of Anna's story. I really enjoyed this. My favorite part, when Anna sat calmly at that dinner table, watching David toast to his devoted wife, while she counted down the minutes until the police walked through the door. He thought he was celebrating his biggest win. She knew he was about to lose everything. What was your favorite moment from this story? Was it finding the meds in the toolbox, the dinner party reveal, or David's prison confession? Drop it in the comments below. If you love watching people reclaim their power from those who tried to destroy them, hit that subscribe button right now. More stories of victims who became victors coming your way.